everyone. My name is Lee Brock, and I'm one of the co-artistic directors of the Barrow Group. And I welcome you all this afternoon for our artist conversation with Zsuzska Beswick. So we're so excited that she's here in our artist conversation. For those of you who don't know who the Barrow Group is, we are a nonprofit theater company and training program located in New York City, where we work with a very specific acting aesthetic, which helps the actor get looser, more spontaneous, more like you're watching real people in real situations, so that when people are watching shows at the Barrow Group, the audience can come in and have a deeper and richer experience. But we are so excited this afternoon to be having our artist conversation now with Zsuzska. So welcome. So Zsuzska, what is keeping you inspired these days?
Yeah, what's keeping me inspired these days? It's definitely been difficult with the pandemic and feeling like everything was closed off and just being in quarantine. What's keeping me inspired is I've been watching a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows that I haven't had the opportunity to like binge watch before. So watching movies, there's so many good movies that came out this year. Has really kept me inspired, especially stories that I can relate to, stories about people of color. Yeah, that's what's been keeping me inspired.
Fabulous. And anything that you have seen recently that that you were touched by, or that you that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, probably Minari was probably my favorite. Yeah, Minari was just a really great story. The relationship with the grandmother, was really beautiful and something that I really connected with for sure.
That's great. Yeah, that's really wonderful. So Zsuzska, you have been taking classes here with the Barrow Group for over 8 years, 9, 10. How long has it been?
Yeah, something like that.
And you started out with us as an apprentice in the apprentice program when that apprentice program was going strong, and now you're in the teacher training program.
Yeah.
So what have you learned in that teacher training program, or what?
Yeah, it's been great, and actually right now we're in the process of actually practicing to teach, which has been my favorite part. In the beginning, we were going over tools and application of tools, but really practicing to teach, watching actors work, and being the teacher in charge has been super, super helpful. Seth gave a really interesting analogy the other day in class, but he compared it to like being doctors, and we're diagnosing the issue, in a scene, and then we're prescribing a tool to remedy the situation. And I that really stuck with me, and I think it's also really helped me be a better artist and and a better actor, because this is useful for myself as well. Ideally, like, I'll be able to self-diagnose myself and apply a tool for when I need it.
Right. That's so great. That's like so wonderful. And I think in that teacher training, it's been really great because it's also given the opportunity for all kinds of different discussions to come up, right? Mm-hmm. So you're kind of looking at language, how we use language, how language affects people. So I think that's been, seems like a really wonderful opportunity just to explore a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, our use of language has been a really important part of the class, and it was unexpected at first. I didn't expect it to be, but it's so important, the way that we communicate with each other, especially when we're going to be teaching, how we communicate with the other actors in the class. And it's been just a good lesson in general about, outside of teaching, the language that we should be using and how it affects other people. And, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really a wonderful opportunity now for us to really look at words under this microscope and just even be more mindful about how we're using words and how it's affecting others. And that's really wonderful. So how old were you when you started acting?
I started acting, I guess, in ninth grade. Yeah, my high school had a really amazing performing arts program, which I joined because I always, wanted to do theater. So I started doing that in ninth grade, continued on, till I graduated. And then in college, I didn't major in theater, but I was regularly taking acting classes as much as I could until I joined the Barrow group pretty much right after, and I've been there ever since. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like so wonderful. And so you are also directing a piece for this show that we're putting on called Reflections, which is next Friday night at the Barrow Group, which is Friday the 21st, I think at 7 o'clock. And can you tell us a little bit about Reflections first? Talk about that.
Yeah, Reflections is going to be a show highlighting stories about Asian people. Stories about Asian people written by Asian playwrights. We're going to do a bunch of different scenes from different plays. And, with so much going on in the world, there's been a lot of hatred against the Asian community. It's really wonderful that the Barrow Group is doing this show just to highlight Asian stories, and hopefully it can be an opportunity for people to learn about Asian playwrights that they didn't know before, learn about Asian stories that they didn't know before. And I'm sure that it'll be something that anybody can connect with. There'll be at least one scene that you can connect with in the show.
That's fabulous. That is so great, and we're so excited that this is happening. And you're directing a piece in the Reflections. So can you tell us about this piece that you're directing?
Yeah, I'm going to be directing a scene from A Language of Their Own by Che Yu, and it's a really wonderful play about. It takes place in the late 80s, early 90s, and it's about two Asian men who were dating and had a breakup, and that's kind of how the play starts. And then throughout the play, they move on from their life in different relationships. However, they still have this connection to each other, and it really discusses relationships between gay Asian men, and then also, relationships with Asian men and white men. And it's a really beautiful play, and it moves rather quickly, but it's really poignant. And in the scene, it's these two ex-boyfriends, and they haven't seen each other in a while, and they come together after a couple months after their breakup at a party, and they're kind of reminiscing for the first time since their initial breakup.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds beautiful. That sounds beautiful. And so directing with this, like what have you learned just even on Zoom? What have you learned about just, directing this piece or?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is those eye lines. Those eye lines are so important over Zoom. Placing the actor, opposite of you, where your eye lines are going to be, looking at them, really trying to make this as realistic as possible.
Uh-huh.
Again, given the format of us being on Zoom. But yeah, that's probably the trickiest part. And, all you're seeing is the screen. So it's, how are you able to tell the story of your environment and what's happening, even given just a small screen that we can see.
Yeah, that's great. That is so great. And so, so have you enjoyed the directing process, just even being an actor, teacher, director? How is that a little bit different than being an actor?
It's fun because, directing and teaching, you're looking at things so objectively. So yeah, I've been really enjoying that. It's given me the opportunity to meet Asian actors that I hadn't met before. So, that's even more amazing. I want to connect with other members of my community who are artists. Yeah, my actors have been great to work with, and yeah, I think I'll be keeping relationships with them long past the show.
Yeah, that's so great. And the more the more that we can even just find our community, keep creating with our community, just creating art. That's really wonderful. That's fabulous. So even just even talking about that, like being an artist and doing these plays that are going to give a forum for healing. As an artist, as an actor, as a director, as a teacher, I mean, do you think it's a responsibility for artists to do projects that are going to provoke change in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of what's happening in the world, obviously, is because of misinformation, and telling stories, honest stories, true stories about our experience can really get rid of that misinformation that's been spread. This idea of like the Asian other is a myth, and these kind of stories will, I think, really relate us to a lot of different people.
Yeah, that is so great. And I totally agree. The more that we keep telling these stories, because I'm always saying that art can heal the world, and how are we able to keep healing the world one person at a time, one story at a time, so that we are having a deeper understanding, with each other. So yes, we're healing
Yeah.
people, situations. Yeah, so that's really great. That's like so wonderful. So again, just even within stories, like what kind of stories, like you've already said that a little bit, but the stories that touch you or that you do want to put out in the world, yeah, what are some of those things that you want to do?
Yeah, I had mentioned this before, but stories about people of color is what really inspires me. I also have like a multi-ethnic background, so I'm really drawn to stories about these clashing of cultures coming together. And even in quarantine, I've been more inspired to write myself, write about my experience. I have an Asian and Caribbean background, and that's not really something that I've seen so much. And it's been really inspiring me to write my experience of what that is, and being a first generation American as well.
That's fantastic. So I'm so thrilled that you are that you're writing, and that you are kind of starting to to do that, and to put your stories out into the world. That's fantastic. That's great. So with that, do you have a discipline for your writing, or how has that come to you? So maybe we could talk about your kind of your artist discipline a little bit, but the writing, what inspired you to kind of start writing?
Quarantine. Being stuck in my apartment, just feeling maybe creatively gassed out. I was like, I need to do something. And I've been wanting to write for a while, but when the world was open and so many other things were going on, I had so many excuses for why I couldn't just sit down and write. And quarantine really forced me to be like, I don't have anything else going on right now. I
Right,
can
that's
sit
great.
down and write. Yeah. And I kind of almost, I really enjoy creative writing. So I started, I guess, writing like, I guess, a short story in a sense about my own experience. And then I then translated it into, starting to write like a short play.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wonderful. That is so wonderful. That's great. And so do you put time aside each day to do that? Or do you just kind of write? So do you have a discipline on that, or you want to, or do you just kind of write whenever you're moved to do it?
Yeah, I'm a pretty disciplined person, so
Yep.
what I like to do is like I give myself daily tasks of
Mhm.
like things that I want to accomplish that day.
Uh-huh.
And maybe I usually do it the day before or the beginning of the week.
Mhm.
And yeah, the goal is to check those things off the list daily.
Right, just check those little boxes off. So within that discipline, are you disciplined with your exercise or your yeah, kind of exercise, or yeah, like your personal discipline? You want to talk about that a little bit, like what so the boxes that you're checking off, are they mostly just goals that you want to achieve, or
Yeah, goals I want to achieve. Fitness is like also a huge part of my life, and it is a way for me to like relieve stress. So that's a huge part of the list. Even getting outside and just like going on a daily walk, like that's something that I've also had to implement into a to-do list, because in quarantine, it's so easy sometimes to just stay in your apartment all day.
right?
But it's helpful just to get outside and get some air for like 30 minutes to an hour.
Right. Yeah, no, that's good. I love to talk about actor discipline and how we can sharpen that discipline, because I think also within that, and just for artists, it creates a structure for us to operate into. So I knew that you were very disciplined. So I'm glad that you shared that a little bit with us. That's good. So in your kind of your career here, like maybe we could talk about some of the challenges that you've had, just with yeah, the setting your goals, just even challenges that you've had with your career or being an artist in New York City. What have some of those challenges been for you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, a big challenge is that there's no direct roadmap, when it comes to being an artist. There's no straight pathway, you got to do A, B, and C. The experience is going to be different for everybody.
Mhm.
And yeah, a lot of times it's, it'll be, um, it'll be us learning through, it'll be us, how do I say this? It's our experience that teaches us what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
So what works for somebody else isn't necessarily going to work for you. So that's been a challenge, is, every day, putting in the effort, going on auditions, also networking, I think has always been difficult for me. It's something that I often get insecure about. Yeah, I would say for the most part, I'm an introvert. So sometimes the idea of networking really overwhelms me and gets me anxious.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I think it's in New York, there's so many actors, and you often face a lot of rejection, and it's that continuous, push to keep going, and just reminding yourself, why you're doing this, why you've chosen to be an artist. When I was younger, I often used to believe that, like, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z by this age. And as I've gotten older, that's really changed. I'm really inspired to see so many actors, older actors, honestly, have such long careers and doing work at ages that you would often retire at. So the goal now is longevity. That's the goal. It's not like I need to do this and this by the time I reach this age. So yeah, I think that's what keeps me going. This isn't a fast race. It's every day, it's doing the work, Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I totally, totally love that. And again, like just even, yeah, you have to be able to experience these things before you kind of realize that, oh, I'm going to throw that the goal thing kind of out the window, or the artist path is not such a linear path. Like if you were going to be a lawyer or an accountant, that you know, don't quite. It's a little bit crazier to you know, unfold. But yeah, that's really beautiful. And how can you let things go so different things can come in, and it really is about the quality of your experience, whatever that experience is going to be. And oh, I have a question here. Terrific. Oh, just wanted to throw out, if people do want to ask Zsuzska questions, you can put that in the chat, and I will share that. So terrific. So question, what are some of your favorite parts that you have played?
What are some of the favorite parts that I've played? Like 2 years ago, I did a short film, and it was really special to me because it was about a queer Asian American having moved to New York from like a small town in Texas. And on this particular weekend, her younger sister, who she hasn't had a close relationship with, comes and spends a weekend with her. And it's really the first time that they're able to connect. And it was a really fun project, and something that I connected with, just like this idea of in many ways, you know, feeling like you don't belong, or, you know, especially with, you know, family, like, I don't know, everyone has their weird, you know, family relationships. They can be complicated. And yeah, it was a role that I really connected with. And it was challenging also, just because a lot of it was overnight, and it was like these really long overnight shoots. So it was also in a way physically challenging, but it was super rewarding at the end.
That's great. That's wonderful. That sounds like a beautiful piece. That's fantastic. Here's another question. Hold on. Okay. Great. So what project would you say was your most rewarding experience as an artist?
Yeah, that probably would be the one.
That would be the one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a short film I did called Jean Alone, and I was playing a character named Jean. Yeah.
Jean Alone. That's wonderful. Great. Yeah, that's beautiful. Terrific. So, any ideas of how we can get kind of even more of these stories, Asian stories, out into the world, even bringing people together so that more people can share these stories, hear these stories? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, you know, Reflections is a great start for that. And you know, more productions like that, you know, more theater companies, you know, dedicating time to just telling Asian stories. Also encouraging, you know, Asian actors and Asian playwrights to write and produce their own work. I think will be super helpful, especially now. I think this will inspire a lot of new writing. This crazy year, you know, 2020 alone, I think will bring about some really interesting pieces.
Yeah, yeah. I so agree with you, just in regards to just how can we produce our own stuff, or find those stories that you want to put out into the world, and kind of make that stuff happen. So we're not waiting for other people to, you know, cast us in things, but what is the story that you want to tell? How can I get it out there? How can you find your tribe of people to produce with, and you know, get these stories, out there, which is wonderful. So these things happen, and how are we able to come together and create these stories, which is fantastic. That's really great. Oh, so you're writing. Can you tell us what your story is about that you are working on?
Yeah. I've actually put it down for a little bit, but this is great. This will inspire me to keep working on the next drafts. But yeah, it was actually inspired by a really bad breakup, and also the relationship that I have with my own mother, who I love dearly, but is often.
I've met your mother. I met your mother, right?
Yeah. But yeah, Asian family relationships are very complicated, and yeah, she's a tough love kind of lady. So yeah, often hard to please. So it's about this bad breakup, and then kind of leaning on my relationship with my mother, but her not giving me the support that I believe I need.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that sounds beautiful. And how are we able to help and support everybody to, help them realize their dreams and elevate them and lift them up? Terrific. Here's another question. Do you have any favorite Asian playwrights that you love and that you would share so we can all learn about their bodies of work? It's a beautiful question. That's from Ariel Klein, right? So yeah, so she's like so good. Thank you. Yeah, so who are some of your favorite Asian playwrights that inspire you?
Yeah, thanks, Ariel, for that question. Yeah, some of the Asian playwrights that I love, Young Jin Lee is one. Naomi Izuki. I love Diana Sun. Julia Cho. One who I started reading recently, his name is Christopher Chen as well.
Yeah, those are some really great playwrights. They're wonderful, all of them. That's really, really, really terrific. That's good. Great. Yes, we've talked about your challenges. We've talked about what's inspired you. Different things putting out into the world. That's fantastic. Yeah. So any other questions that we have here tools at the Barrow Group. So what were some of your favorite tools at the Barrow Group that you took away with from studying with the Barrow Group?
What are my favorite tools? That's so hard. Conversation exercise is probably going to be number one, because it's just always useful, and as Seth teaches us in the teacher training program, the first thing that we want to assess is like, does this sound like a real conversation? So conversation exercise is one that we're always going to go to. And for those who may not be familiar, but conversation exercise pretty much has actors engage in an actual conversation. And then at one point, the teacher will tell them to slip into the text. And the idea is that if there's any shift between your real life conversation and your conversation as the characters, you kind of let go of that shift. So there should be no, vocal change or anything like that from your real life conversation. In that way, you can get real, people talking in the way that they would in real life.
Yep, that's a favorite tool of the Barrow Group, and you articulated that so well.
Oh, one more.
Oh, she has another one. Okay.
A new favorite recently is silent improv, for sure.
Of the silent improv.
Yes. Yeah, the silent improv. yeah, it's a nice reminder as an actor that you have permission to hang out in the space until you're ready to speak. And in that silence, a lot of things can come up. And I've found it super useful. I think I remember the first time that I did it with you, and there was the scenario, I think, of like a car accident or something like that, and being in an emergency room. Yeah, and it was super eye-opening for me. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. That the language of silence and how that silence gets to come in and play on us as actors. That's I think that's really, it's so powerful. It's really powerful. Oh, okay, good. Said someone, me too. I love that exercise. Here's another one. Do you have a favorite scene that you've worked on as a student at TBG, or any favorite tag experiences? I don't know what a tag experience would be. Do you know what a tag experience would be?
I'm not sure. No, I'm trying to think of a scene. I mean, honestly,
I know you've done so much. You have done so much. You've done, everything that you've done has just been so exquisite. Zsuzska's an amazing.
Yeah, I'm trying to like remember all the scenes that I've done throughout the years.
The Constellations, she was so great in that Constellations. That beautiful Secret Rapture monologue is like so good on you. Okay, now wait. Oh, now all the questions are coming in. Okay, hold on. So let me back up here. So, okay, what's the best advice that you have ever received as an actor, and why? Thank you, Looney.
The best advice that I've received as an actor is, I think, just to be myself. I think you can often feel intimidated going in any room and meeting a casting director or director, and there's nobody else that is you and can do the things that you do. Like, you are special in that right. So it reminds me just to be confident in who I am, and the work that I'm going to bring, because another actor is not going to work in the same way that I am, just by virtue of me being Zsuzska.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, this is a beautiful, so this is a very beautiful question. Okay, it has been so exciting to hear voices of young Asian Americans like you, and I've read about and observed a generational difference, with older Asian Americans in general being more reluctant to share stories, especially if they are exposed to trauma and vulnerability. Are you aware of any forums where older Asian Americans can feel safe about sharing their stories? Oh my God, that is such a really great question. Yeah, how are we able to, are you aware of any forums where older Asian Americans can feel safe about sharing their stories? That's a really good question.
Wow, yeah, that is a really good question. And I'm actually not sure if I know of any forums specifically for older, Asian artists to share, but there must be one.
Well, can we think of one? That's interesting. That is like such a great question. Because yeah, so even if in that question, like you were talking about your mother, and also just even the sometimes the difficulties that we have, in terms of generations of, communicating, and that, and like even like with your mother, does she share her stories, or is she one to share her stories, or do you sense that in terms of that generation about not sharing, or a little bit shy to share?
Definitely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. My mother isn't inclined to share unless I ask. And same experience with other, older Asian relatives that I've had, and my grandmother as well. There's often this idea of like living in the present and just kind of forgetting, past traumas and past experiences that were difficult for them.
Right.
So I can definitely understand what that person was saying with that question. And I'm not sure of any forms specifically, but there must be. And yeah, if you're a writer, I highly suggest writing about it. I think that would be really helpful to you and really important to share with the world.
Just even that like gives me an idea, like how are we able to even create some sort of forum that we provide, a space for older Asian people to come together and share their stories. But again, if it's the desire, if they want to share, or if they feel comfortable sharing in public, or is it like someone's writing the story and then other people are sharing it? That is really, it's a wonderful question. And that's great. Because I love what you said about sometimes with the trauma, they just want to get past it or don't even really talk about it, or just kind of moving on. Great. Another question here. So what made you decide to go through the teacher training?
What made me decide to go through the teacher training? I've been studying at the Barrow group for a long time, almost 10 years. It first really presented itself because Farah, had asked me if I was interested. And, I took a couple of days to think about it, and I said, yeah, why not? I'm always such a fan of training, and I love being a forever student. So it just seemed like a natural fit to, train to be a teacher. Like I'm passionate about training. I'm passionate about like the tools that I've learned at the Barrow group. Like, why not? I should do this.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. That's terrific. And I've listened to you teach a little bit, so I hear that you're a really wonderful teacher. So that's all, really, really terrific. That's great. Great. So another question. So what do you want? Are you interested in producing your own work?
Yes, I am. I would love to produce my own work. I wrote a first draft of a short play. It still needs a lot of work. And when it's in a position, where it's a final draft, I would love to produce that. I've also always had an interest in writing like a solo show, maybe just because also, I know that's something that like a lot of people have done, through the Barrow group and things like that. So yeah, that's my other idea of something that I would like to produce, my own solo show.
Wonderful. That is wonderful. And just even in that, I mean, the more that we keep doing it, that's why this, I think this Reflections is so exciting, because it's also introducing us to different playwrights and different Asian playwrights. And it's bringing Asian actors and writers and directors, together to get these stories out in the world. And the more that we kind of keep doing that, I think it even just gives more confidence to, okay, yeah, we can do this. We can get these things out into the world, and just kind of taking baby steps. So when we're, in our studios again and just starting small, just okay, I'm just gonna take 5 minutes and do 5 minutes and get that up, and now I'm going to do 10 minutes and get that 10 minutes up. And so that's really wonderful. That's and you're such a smarty pants too. I remember that I don't know if you were a couple of years ago that you were applying to law school or something, that you're writing that big essay that you won that big scholarship or something, or what did you win in terms of a writing?
Yeah, this was in college. I won like a theater scholar award via the Kennedy Center for
yes
yeah, for a paper that I wrote. Yeah.
What was your paper on again? Because it was such a fantastic topic that
yeah.
you award for, right?
So in college, I studied Chinese politics, and my focus was on the film industry in China and how, Maoism really influenced the film industry. So I wrote a thesis on that, the nationalization of the film industry in China. So I was really interested in film during authoritarian regimes. So I took a class called Nazism in Performance, which was super enlightening. And we studied films that were produced during Nazi Germany. So I wrote a paper on a film that we had watched in that class called Zsuzska. And it's regarded as a film that really intensified Jewish animosity at that time. So I wrote a paper about that film and the sexualization of Jewish men in that film in some way that maybe the National Socialist ideology didn't suspect would happen. So yeah, it's a little complicated, but yeah, it's something I was really proud of, for sure.
Fascinating when you won that big award. I remember when you won that big award for it, but that's yes, that's fascinating. That's really, really fascinating. And hopefully we can, yes, make films that can just even express what people want to express and the stories that people want to express. And